I love that. I love that. One final question in regards to that, and then we'll move on. As we're getting pretty close to the end of our episode for today. But one of the things that I personally found, we had some challenges in our household with one of our daughters. Not exactly the same, but to a degree similar. And I think I battled. The biggest thing was not that I had a issue with loving my daughter, even in the midst of the situation. But I think one thing you mentioned, which is consistency, not just in prayer and in worship. I think you got to be consistent in the love part too,
Right.
because that has. I mean, you're saying that I love this person the way Christ loved me, or
Right.
because Christ loved me, and Christ's love has always been consistent. So it's like the struggle for me was showing that consistently. You know
Right.
what I'm saying? And then knowing how do you love somebody that you don't recognize? How do you love somebody that you don't
That's hard.
does look the same as the person that you started out loving?
Right.
They change drastically. I mean, my wife tells me all the time that I've changed and everything. But she doesn't stop loving me because of that.
Right.
It just she if I changed to somebody else that she didn't that was like polar opposite to what we started off being, that's
Right.
different. That could then make things a lot difficult. But how are you doing that part? How are you being consistently loving? If you don't mind briefly answering that, consistently loving in the situation and not bringing your own stuff into it and just
Right.
continuing to love without conditions. If that makes
Right.
sense.
Yeah, for me, I think it's definitely been the challenge has been that I am changing. And I always joke that my child was transgender, but I'm the one that's changing. And so, had we not been walking through this, I wouldn't know the Lord like I know him right now.
Mm.
And so I definitely have changed in my life the more I grow closer to him. And so, I ask him all the time, the Lord, to blind me if it takes to physically blind my eyes, then to do it. But to blind me for the things I'm seeing on the outside and to pray and believe for my child
Wow.
because of his heart. I think it says, in the word that, God doesn't look at the outside, he looks at the heart. And I believe that's one of the reasons because the outside could change. The things we're going to do as
Absolutely.
we are going to change, but his heart is the same, as it always was. And I think as the church, the capital C church, we have to do a better job of training parents
Indeed.
and, we have these baby dedications and we pray Jeremiah 29:11 and we pretend like, everybody's going to have this hope and this amazing future because that's what the word says. Well, yeah, that is what the word says. But we leave out the part where, Jeremiah was in captivity for 70 years and there might be some bad times in there. So we don't prepare parents that things may not be picture Pinterest perfect.